In this video, we're going to explore the width tool, and we're going to use the width tool to make our lines, in this case the lines in the ears, the lines in the paws and the feet, feel a little bit more organic and a little less mechanical. The width tool resides in the toolbox with the warp tool and the pucker and bloat tools. I think it looks like an upside down mustache. Let's pull off the tool set here. And it's typically the first one in the bar. We're going to zoom in to the paw here, and we're going to talk about the width tool a little more. What does the width tool do? Well, when I have a stroke in Illustrator, in my options bar, I have this center section, which is actually the width profile for a stroke, and by default there are a few defaults in here. Notice when I choose one, it changes what's called the width profile. Is the stroke the same width all the way through? I can access that width profile either up on my menu bar or by clicking the stroke dialog box. It's down in the profile. Here I can reverse the profile also, or in the stroke panel in my tools. Those are the three places that I'll find that that profile option. That's what the width tool works with, is the profile of a line. So when I grab the width tool, if I double click in a spot, it brings up an edit point dialog box. I have the choice to tell Illustrator here I want the first side to go to a certain width. Let's pick 0.05 on side 1, and let's pick 0.1 on side 2, and then it'll calculate the total width, and I can have it adjust any adjoining points if I want to do that. I can constrain these two by clicking the link, and I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now I have a width profile, select off that line, where I have more of the stroke on one side of the line than the other. And that's certainly one way to work. I also now notice have some new points when I click on my line. I have a side 1 point and a side 2 point. And I can actually grab either one of those and alter that line. I can add additional points. So if I want something that's got, I'm going to use my width profile here. I really kind of like that line. It has a cool sort of finger look to me. So what I'm going to do is take that line, and I'm going to go to my profile in my stroke dialog box, and I'm going to reverse it. And so it'll flip it along that line, and now I have this sort of fingery claw looking stroke on my bear. I can move the line. I can still edit this line however I need to. And if I wanted to be consistent, I could grab that same profile, because now that profile lives. Well, we'll add that profile. Let's click this one. I'm going to go ahead and come down here and choose Add Profile. It's the only button in all of Illustrator where the new button is not the same little icon we're used to. In this case, it looks like an arrow pointing down at a piece of paper. We're going to go ahead and click that, and I'm going to call this Bear Fingers. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. I can select that next path, and now the Bear Fingers profile is down at the bottom. I can add that profile. And sometimes the profile doesn't add quite the same way we anticipate, so we have the ability then to go in and tweak that, play with it till we like it. This is definitely a tool where we're sort of playing with things until we're happy with the way they look. And we'll choose that profile again. And let's see what the difference is, because this one, in this profile, here's the difference between these. In this profile, our width, our stroke width has moved to 13, almost 14 points, whereas here we have 3 points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy this width and paste it in on these others, and there we end up with that same profile. I also can do that just by using the eyedropper tool, and that'll match them as well. Now notice this one doesn't have the same nice smooth feel to it, and that's because the angle of this line is a little different. So if I want to fix that, all I have to do is go grab my direct selection tool, and I can change the placement of that, how that width profile applies to that line. My width profile will also be affected if I choose to change the caps. So the caps of a line are how the line ends. By default, we have what's called a butt cap, and it just stops right at the end of the path. But I can add a rounded cap. It's the second option. And when I do that, notice the ends of my lines now have a rounded feel to them. Let's zoom out and see how that looks from a distance. Not completely sure that I love it, but so I'm going to go in and grab my width tool. Again, click a path, and this gives me the ability to sort of change the way that that width is displayed on this path. I can move it up. I can, by selecting normal or uniform up here at the top, I can change it completely. We'll move this down to a more reasonable size, maybe 7 points. Oh, maybe even 3. And then we'll grab the width tool and we'll work with this one. And maybe this time I want to add a little bit of width here. Now you'll notice when I use the width tool on a line, it gives me a uniform thickness, as opposed to when we double click and use the dialog box. And in that case, we have the ability to affect things unilaterally, so one side or the other, independent, which can be very helpful. We also can do that by holding down the Option key or the Alt key on a PC, and that will allow us to move one side at a time. So that's a handy little trick. And let's pull this in here. Actually, I want to smooth out this side a little bit. So that is the width tool. Let's use the width. Let's scooch over here and we'll look at the other hand. Grab the width tool, pick a line. Let's pull that one out there. And then we can go right above it and move the other direction and end up with that thin to thick sort of shape. I would call it a spade shape almost. Pick the next one, apply a similar, I'm going to come up here and make that smoother. Let's grab this point on the path, and we can actually move it down. If we click right on that point, we can move it along the path. Sometimes I find that I get a point that I really like, but it's too far up or too far down, so you can just slide it right along the path. And you do that by clicking on that middle anchor point in the curve there. Don't like what I did with that one, so I'm going to go ahead and reset that to uniform. And I'm going to grab my width tool, give it some width at the bottom, narrow it at the top, move that piece down. And now let's come up and look at the ears. We'll zoom out real quick. If you hold down the Shift key, or the spacebar key, it will allow you to pan. Remember, panning it gives you a hand and it allows you to move around your document smoothly. Now in this case I have a whole bunch of lines and they've already been assigned a width profile, but I can still come in here and tweak them out a little bit. And this just gives your line a little bit more texture, a little bit less consistency. And the consistency, the normality of the line is what makes something look mechanical. So by using the width tool and changing the width of these lines one at a time, giving them some bumps and bruises, if you will, little areas that are thicker than others, that's when this starts to look like it was done by hand instead of electronically. That's all there is to the width tool. It's a lot of play. I encourage you to play with it, and I look forward to seeing your work. Have a great day.